Welcome to Unlocking Passion, Men Report. Let's begin with a news story. Werner Lutz thought that at 70 years old, he had finally found the calm and peace he had earned after 40 years of hard work, until that morning when he woke up in his empty apartment on Koh Samui and realized that everything was gone. His cash, his bank cards, his passport, his phone, and, above all, the woman who had promised him that she would stay with him forever. It was a Wednesday morning in April 2023 when Werner woke from a restless sleep. The sun was already shining brightly through the windows of the small apartment in Lamai Beach. Normally, he woke up to the smell of fresh coffee that Malie prepared for him. But today it was silent. "Malie," Werner called. No answer. He got up and walked through the apartment. The bedroom was empty, and so was the kitchen. Her wardrobe stood open, completely empty. Her shoes were gone, her cosmetics, everything. Werner felt unease rising inside him. Maybe she had only gone shopping, but why had she taken all her things with her? Then his eyes fell on the table in the living room. The place where his wallet usually lay was empty. The small drawer where he kept his cash was open and empty. His passport, which he always kept in the top compartment of the cabinet, had disappeared. With trembling hands, Werner searched for his phone. It was not there. His laptop was gone, and all his bank cards had disappeared. Werner sat heavily on the sofa. His heart was pounding wildly. This could not be happening. It was a nightmare. Any moment now he would wake up, and Malie would be lying beside him, smiling as always. But it was not a nightmare. It was bitter reality. Werner got up and went to his neighbor, an older Thai man who spoke a little English. With gestures and broken words, Werner tried to explain what had happened. The neighbor nodded seriously. He had seen Malie early that morning, around 5 o'clock. She had been carrying large bags and had gotten into a taxi with 2 men. Werner felt dizzy. 2 men. That meant this had been planned. Malie had not acted alone. He had to go to the police. But without a phone, without money, without identification, how was he supposed to do that? Werner felt helpless, lost, betrayed. The woman he loved, the woman who had promised never to leave him, the woman he had called his second chance, had robbed him. She had taken everything he owned, his money, his documents, his dignity. Werner Lutz, 70 years old, a former master mechanic from Kassel, sat in that empty apartment on Koh Samui and tried to understand what had just happened. And while the birds sang outside and life went on, something inside Werner's chest collapsed, something that would never heal again. If you have been enjoying the stories I create, please consider hitting the subscribe button. Your support is crucial for the growth of this channel and helps me dedicate time to making these videos, despite my commitment to a full-time job. Thank you for being here. 15 months earlier, Werner Lutz had been sitting in his living room in Kassel, looking at the papers on his desk. They were his pension insurance documents, bank statements, and paperwork concerning the sale of his workshop. At 69 years old, Werner had completed his life's work. For 40 years, he had worked as a master mechanic. He had run his own workshop, repaired countless cars, performed oil changes, and overhauled engines. It had been hard, honest work. He had sold the workshop to a younger mechanic. The profit was modest, but together with his savings, Werner now had about 360,000 euros. That was the result of his entire working life. Frugal, diligent, without taking big risks. His wife, Hannelore, had died 2 years earlier from lung cancer. They had had a solid marriage, nothing romantic, but dependable. After her death, the house felt empty, too large, too quiet. Werner had no children. That had always been a sore point. Hannelore could not have any, and they had decided against adoption. Now, in old age, Werner sometimes regretted that. Who would take care of him when he became old and frail? His siblings lived scattered across Germany. Contact was rare. Werner had a few acquaintances in town, old regulars from the pub table, but no truly close friends. On that January evening in 2022, Werner felt lonely and aimless. The workshop was sold, his wife was dead, and his house was empty. What was he supposed to do now with the remaining years of his life? He turned on the television and happened to land on a travel report about Thailand. The images of beaches, palm trees, and smiling people captivated him. The narrator spoke of German retirees living in Thailand, of low costs, good weather, and friendly people. Werner had never visited Thailand. He had not traveled much at all. The workshop had always taken priority, and Hannelore had not been much of a traveler. But now he was free. He had time, he had money. Why not? In the following weeks, Werner researched Thailand intensively. He read blogs, watched videos, and studied information about visas and the cost of living. The more he learned, the more he liked the idea. In March 2022, Werner booked a flight. 4 weeks in Thailand as an exploration. He flew to Bangkok and then onward to Koh Samui, an island in the Gulf of Thailand, known for its beaches and relaxed atmosphere. The journey was long and exhausting, but when Werner stepped off the plane and breathed in the warm, humid air, he felt a strange sense of anticipation. This was something new, an adventure. He had booked a small hotel in Lamai Beach, a quieter part of the island. The hotel was simple but clean, with friendly staff. At the reception desk, a young Thai woman helped him check in. She smiled warmly, spoke good English, and patiently explained everything to him. Her name tag said Malay. "If you need anything, just ask," she said. "We are happy to help you." Werner was impressed by her friendliness. In Germany, customer service was often distant and formal. Here, it felt personal and warm. The next morning, there was a knock at Werner's room door. When he opened it, Malay stood there with a tray. "Good morning," she said with a smile. "I brought you breakfast on the house." "Welcome to Koh Samui." Werner was surprised and touched. "That is very kind." "Thank you very much." Malay placed the tray on the small table. Fresh fruit, toast, coffee, orange juice. It looked delicious. "If you want to explore the island," Malay said, "I can recommend good places for you. Beaches, restaurants, temples." "That would be wonderful," Werner said. In the following days, Werner saw Malay often. She worked at the reception's desk and was always friendly, always helpful. When Werner had questions, she took time to explain. When he needed recommendations, she gave him the best tips. Werner felt cared for. After years of loneliness in Kassel, this was a new and pleasant feeling. On his 10th day on the island, she invited him for a walk on the beach. It was a beautiful evening. The sun was just setting. "Werner," Malay said as they walked side by side along the beach, "may I ask you something?" "Of course." "Why are you here alone? A nice man like you should not be alone." Werner told her about Hannelore, about the loneliness, and about his desire for a new beginning. Malay listened attentively. At the end, she said, "I understand. Loneliness is hard. I am alone too. My husband left me 3 years ago. Since then, I work a lot, but at night it is quiet." Werner felt a connection to her. They were both lonely, both searching for something. "Maybe," Malay said carefully, "we do not have to be alone. Maybe we can be friends." Werner smiled. "I would be happy to be friends." And so began a friendship that Werner thought was the best thing that had happened to him in years. But in truth, it was the beginning of his downfall. Werner's planned 4 weeks in Thailand turned into 6 weeks. He could not bring himself to leave. The island was beautiful, the weather was pleasant, and, above all, there was Malay. They spent more and more time together. Malay often had time off, and when she did, they met. She showed him hidden beaches, small restaurants, and local markets. Werner enjoyed her company more than he wanted to admit. Malay was attentive, interested in his life, and asked questions about Germany, his work, and his dreams. Werner felt seen and valued. After 6 weeks, Werner had to return to Germany. His visa was expiring, and he still had matters to settle in Kassel. "Will you come back?" Malay asked on his last evening. "Yes," Werner said without hesitation. "I will come back. And when I come back, I will stay longer. Maybe forever." Malay's eyes lit up. "Really? That would make me so happy, Papa Werner." She called him Papa Werner, a pet name that at first seemed strange to Werner, but then touched him. It was her way of showing affection. Once back in Germany, Werner stayed only 3 months. He sold his house in Kassel, settled his affairs, and arranged for his pension to be transferred to an international account. His acquaintances were surprised. "Werner, are you sure, Thailand, at your age?" "I am not dead," Werner had replied. "And yes, I am sure." In August 2022, Werner returned to Koh Samui. This time, not for weeks, but permanently. Malay was waiting for him at the airport with a hand-painted sign. "Welcome back, Papa Werner." They hugged. Werner felt as if he had come home. Malay had found a small apartment for him, not far from the hotel. 12,000 baht a month, about 350 euros. It was 1 room with a kitchen and bathroom, simple but bright and clean. The first weeks were wonderful. Werner settled in, bought furniture, and explored his new home. Malay was often with him, helped him shop, and explained where to get the best products. One evening, about 2 months after Werner's return, Malay brought up a topic. They were sitting on Werner's small balcony, drinking tea. "Papa Werner," Malay began, "I have to tell you something. I am a little embarrassed." "What is wrong?" Werner asked, concerned. "My room. I have to move out. The landlord wants to renovate. He needs the apartment back. I have been looking for something new for weeks, but everything is so expensive. How much do you pay now?" 6,000 baht, but now I cannot find anything under 8,000. "That is too much for me." Werner thought about it. His apartment was big enough for 2 people. They had become very close in the past months, and honestly, he enjoyed her company. "You could move in here," Werner suggested. "The apartment is big enough. We could share the rent." Malay looked surprised. "Really? You would do that? Why not? We are friends and I am often lonely. It would be nice to have someone here." Malay's eyes became moist. "Papa Werner, you are so good to me. I promise I will be a good roommate." I will cook for you. I will clean. I will take care of everything. And so Malie moved in. At first it was truly pleasant. She cooked for Werner every day, kept the apartment clean, and was cheerful and attentive. Werner no longer felt lonely. But then the small changes began. Malie asked for access to Werner's bank cards. Only for emergencies, she said. If something happens to you, I need access so I can help. Werner hesitated, but Malie seemed so worried and caring that he gave in. He gave her his emergency credit card. Then she persuaded him to open a joint Thai bank account. For everyday expenses, she explained. It is easier than always paying with German cards. Werner agreed. He transferred 30,000 euros to the new account, enough for about 1 year of living costs. Malie also helped him set up online banking. Werner was not very technically skilled, and Malie patiently explained every step. In the end, she also had access to the account as a co-user, as she said, to help him if he had problems. Werner trusted her. She had proven herself to be loving and caring. Why should he be suspicious? In December, about 4 months after Malie moved in, she brought up a bigger topic. They were sitting at dinner, which Malie had cooked. Papa Werner, she began, I have a dream. I want to have a small house. Not here on Samui. Too expensive. But maybe near Surat Thani on the mainland. A simple house with a garden. That is a beautiful dream, Werner said. I found a plot of land, Malie continued. Beautiful and quiet, with a view of the mountains. The owner wants to sell. 2,500,000 baht. That is about 65,000 euros, Werner swallowed. That was a lot of money. Malie saw his reaction. I know that is a lot, but imagine it. We could live there and pay no more rent. Our own house, our own garden. We could grow vegetables, keep chickens, and live peacefully. We? Werner asked. Malie took his hand. Papa Werner, I like you very much. You are a good man. If you want, we can grow old together in our own house. Werner felt his heart beating faster. Was that some kind of declaration of love? He had not expected it, but he liked the idea. Growing old peacefully in his own house with Malie. But the land, Werner said carefully, would have to be in your name, right? Foreigners cannot own land in Thailand. Yes, Malie admitted, but it would be our house for both of us. What if something goes wrong? What if we argue? Malie looked hurt. Do you think I would betray you after everything we have together? No, no, Werner hurried to say. That is not what I mean. I love you, Papa Werner, Malie said quietly. I want a life with you. But if you do not trust me, then say it now. Werner felt guilty. Of course I trust you. I am sorry. In the following days, Werner thought intensely about it. 65,000 euros was a lot of money, almost 1/5 of his savings, but the idea of having his own house was tempting. And Malie had proven herself faithful and loving. After 1 week, Werner gave his answer. All right, we will buy the land. Malie's joy was overwhelming. She hugged him tightly and kissed his cheek. You make me so happy, Papa Werner. I promise you will not regret it. The transfer went out. 65,000 euros left Werner's account. Malie showed him photos of the land. Documents, plans, everything looked legitimate. Werner was relieved. Soon, Malie said, we will be in our own house. Just you and me, forever. Werner believed her. He had no reason not to believe her. But in truth, He had just taken the first step into a carefully planned trap. After the purchase of the land, Mali's behavior changed subtly. She was still friendly, but less attentive. She spent more time outside the house, saying she had to take care of the land, speak with construction workers, and arrange permits. Werner sometimes asked if he could come along, but Malay always found excuses. "Not yet, Papa Werner. I want everything to be perfect before you see it." In January 2023, about 1 month after the land purchase, Malay came with a new concern. "Papa Werner, I need your help," she said one evening. "What is wrong? My mother is sick. She needs surgery. The doctors say it is serious, but it costs a lot of money." "How much?" Werner asked. 100,000 baht, Malay said. "That is about 3,000 euros. I do not have the money. Can you help me?" "I will pay it back, I promise." Werner hesitated only briefly. If Malay's mother was truly sick, he had to help. "Of course, I will help. Your family is now my family too." The transfer went out. Werner did not think further about it. But it was only the beginning. In the following weeks, more demands came. In February, Malay supposedly needed money for building materials for the house. 400,000 baht, about 12,000 euros. In March was furniture, 200,000 baht, about 6,000 euros. With every payment, Werner's savings shrank. But Malay assured him every time that this was the last major expense and that the house would soon be finished. Werner began to worry. By now he had spent well over 100,000 euros. His savings had shrunk to about 280,000 euros. "Malay, I have to see the land," Werner said firmly one evening. "I have invested so much money. I have the right to see what is being done with it." Malay looked irritated. "Why do you not trust me?" "It is not about trust. It is about wanting to see what we are building." Malay sighed theatrically. "Fine, next week. I will show it to you next week." But the next week came, and Malay found an excuse. Then the week after that. There was always a reason why they could not go. Werner became suspicious. He began speaking with other Germans on the island. In an online group for expats, he carefully described his situation. The answers were alarming. Several men warned him. "That sounds like a classic scam. Check your bank accounts. Make sure she does not have access." Werner felt panic rising inside him. He checked his online banking. What he saw made the blood freeze in his veins. In the past weeks, several transfers had been made that he had not authorized. Small amounts, 2,000 baht here, 3,000 there. But together they added up to more than 50,000 baht, about 500 euros. Werner confronted Malay immediately. "Malay, transfers were made from my account that I did not approve." Malay looked surprised. "Really? Let me see." She looked at the transactions and then said, "Oh, that was me. I thought I had told you. That was for repairs on the house. You cannot simply take money from my account without asking," Werner said, his voice now loud. Malay's face became hard. "Your account? It is our account, Werner. You added me as a co-owner. Do you remember? For emergencies. Not so you can take money whenever you want." Molly stood up. "I have had enough of your mistrust. I work hard to build our house, and all you do is accuse me. I am not accusing you. I just want transparency. Maybe I should leave," Malay said coldly. "Maybe I am not welcome here." "No, wait," Werner said, suddenly frightened. That is not what I mean. But Malie went into the bedroom and slammed the door. Werner remained behind, confused and worried. Had he been too harsh, or was he right to be suspicious? That night, Werner could not sleep. He lay awake and thought. Something was wrong. But what exactly, and what should he do? The next morning, Malie was friendly again, as if nothing had happened. She made breakfast, smiled, and kissed his forehead. I am sorry about yesterday, she said. I was stressed. I should have asked you beforehand. I am sorry too, Werner said, but deep inside him the unease remained, a feeling that something fundamental was wrong. 2 weeks later, in early April, Werner noticed that his passport was missing. He had always kept it in the top compartment of the cabinet, but now it was not there. Malie, have you seen my passport? Malie thought for a moment. Maybe you put it somewhere else. No, I always keep it here. They searched the whole apartment, but they did not find it. Maybe it was stolen, Malie suggested. But who would have stolen it? No one except us comes in here. Malie shrugged. Sometimes things just get lost. Werner was disturbed. Without a passport, he could not travel and could not extend his visa. He had to go to the German embassy in Bangkok to apply for a new one. It would take weeks and cost money. But he had no other choice. What he did not know was that Malie had taken his passport. She had also made copies of all his documents. She had access to all his accounts, his cards, his data, and in a few days she would strike and take everything Werner had left. On that Tuesday evening in April, 2 days before Werner would wake up and find everything lost, there were the first signs that something was very wrong. Werner noticed that Malie seemed nervous. She was constantly on the phone, speaking quietly in Thai with someone. When Werner asked who it was, she only said, "My sister, just family matters." In the evening, Malie cooked a special meal, Werner's favorite dishes. She was unusually loving, hugged him often, and called him her best man. Werner felt flattered, but also slightly uneasy. Why was she suddenly so attentive again? After dinner, Malie made Werner a strong drink, rice whiskey mixed with fruit juice. Drink, Papa Werner, relax. You work too hard, Werner drank. It tasted strong, but not unpleasant. After the second glass, he felt sleepy. I think I am going to bed, he said. Good idea, Malie said. Sleep well, my dear. Werner went into the bedroom and quickly fell into a deep sleep. What he did not know was that Malie had mixed a strong sleeping pill into his drink. At around 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 men came into the apartment. Malie's accomplices. They worked quickly and quietly. They took Werner's wallet with all his cards. They took the cash from the drawer, about 30,000 baht, almost 900 euros. They took his laptop, his phone, and his passport, which had already been hidden earlier. Malie herself packed her things, all her clothing, her cosmetics, and her personal belongings. It looked as if she had never been there. One of the men asked in Thai about the old man. Malie cast one last look toward the bedroom, where Werner was sleeping deeply and heavily. He will wake up in a few hours. By then, we will be long gone. They left the apartment quietly. Outside, a car was waiting. They loaded everything in and drove away into the night. The next morning, as described in the prologue, Werner woke up and found himself in an empty apartment. The first hours were chaotic. Werner desperately searched for his things, for explanations, for hope, But there was nothing. The neighbor helped him get to the police. At the police station, Werner tried to explain what had happened. His English was limited, and most of the police officers did not speak German. Finally, they found a police officer who could speak English reasonably well. Werner told his story about Malay, the stolen money, and the missing passport. The police officer took notes and nodded sympathetically. At the end he said, "Mr. Lutz, unfortunately, such cases happen often. Foreigners meet Thai women, trust too quickly, and lose money. Very sad. Can you find her?" Werner asked desperately. The officer sighed. "But we will try. But honestly, the chances are small. These people are experienced. They disappear quickly, change names, go to other places. But she took everything. My money, my documents, everything. Do you have proof that she stole it?" the officer asked. Werner thought. Proof. He had voluntarily given Malay access to his accounts. He had voluntarily transferred money. Legally, perhaps, she had not done anything illegal. She was a co-owner of my account, Werner admitted. I trusted her. The officer nodded. That is the problem. Legally, she can say you gave her permission. It is difficult to prove that it was theft. Werner felt hopeless. So I can do nothing. We will write a report. We will search for her, but I cannot promise anything. Werner left the police station devastated. He had no documents, no money, no phone. He was completely helpless in a foreign country. The neighbor offered to let Werner stay with him for a few days. Werner was grateful, but also ashamed. At 70 years old, he was dependent on the charity of strangers. In the following days, Werner tried to understand the extent of the damage. He contacted his German bank using the neighbor's computer. The news was devastating. His main account was almost empty. Of the 280,000 euros he had still had, only about 15,000 remained. In the days before her disappearance, Malay had systematically made transfers, withdrawn money, and drained his account. Werner felt physically ill. Almost his entire life's work, 40 years of hard work, gone, stolen by the woman he had trusted, the woman he had loved. He also had to go to the German embassy in Bangkok to apply for a new passport. That cost money and time. He had to give a sworn statement, have photos taken, and fill out forms. The whole process would take weeks. Meanwhile, Werner lived from the kindness of his neighbor. He no longer had his own accommodation. The rent had not been paid, and the landlord wanted the apartment back. Werner felt as if he had hit rock bottom. He had lost everything, his money, his documents, his dignity, and, above all, his trust in people. Werner spent almost a week with his neighbor, a kind Thai man named Sam. Sam spoke little English, but he was compassionate. He gave Werner food, a place to sleep, and access to a computer. Through that computer, Werner contacted the German embassy in Bangkok. He explained his situation: stolen passport, no money, stranded on Koh Samui. The embassy employee was professional, but her words offered little comfort. "Mr. Lutz, you must come to the embassy in person. We cannot send you a passport by mail. You need an emergency passport, and for that you must be here." "But I have no money for the trip," Werner explained. The employee sighed. "Are there family members in Germany who can send you money?" Werner thought about his siblings. He had barely had contact with them for years, but now he had no other choice. He contacted his sister in Hamburg. On the phone, he told her the whole story. She was horrified. "Werner, how could you be so stupid?" she said, not without reproach. "I know," Werner said quietly. "I was lonely. I made a mistake." After the conversation, his sister transferred him 2,000 euros. It was not much, but enough to get to Bangkok and apply for a new passport. Werner took a ferry to the mainland and then a bus to Bangkok. The journey took almost 12 hours. It was exhausting and humiliating. In Bangkok, Werner found a cheap guest house near the embassy. 500 baht per night, about 15 euros. The room was small and dirty, but it was all he could afford. The next morning, Werner went to the German embassy. He had to wait for hours. When it was finally his turn, he had to tell his whole story. How his passport had been stolen and how he had been deceived. The embassy employee was compassionate, but also sober. "Mr. Lutz, unfortunately, you are not the first German this has happened to in Thailand. We see such cases regularly. Can you help me get my money back?" She shook her head. "That is a matter for the Thai police. We can issue you a new passport, but in criminal matters, we can only help to a limited extent." Werner filled out the forms and paid the fees. The new passport would be ready in 2 weeks. Werner spent those 2 weeks in Bangkok, in the cheap guest house. He rarely left his room. He had little money, little energy, and little hope. During that time, he thought a lot. How had he gotten into this situation? Was it only Mali's fault, or had he ignored warning signs? The answer was painfully clear. He had ignored all the warning signs. He had trusted too quickly, given too much, questioned too little, out of loneliness, out of desperation, out of the desire to be loved. When Werner picked up his new passport after 2 weeks, he felt no relief, only emptiness. He now had a document, but that did not change his situation. He was still nearly penniless, still stranded, still broken. He returned to Koh Samui. The neighbor, had agreed to continue taking Werner in until he found a solution. But what solution was there? Werner still had about 15,000 euros in his German account. His monthly pension was about 1,200 euros. It was enough to survive, but it was far from the comfortable life he had imagined. The months after the theft were the darkest in Werner's life. He continued living with Sam, sleeping on a mattress in the living room, and sharing the family's simple meals. Sam never asked for payment, but Werner felt obligated to help. He gave the family 5,000 baht a month, about 150 euros. It was the least he could do. Werner tried to find work, but at 70 years old, and without special skills, that was almost impossible. He did not speak Thai. His English was limited, and his health was fragile. Eventually, he found occasional work helping other German tourists as an informal translator, guide, and advisor. The pay was minimal, perhaps 300 or 400 euros a month, but every baht helped. His health began to suffer. The stress, the poor nutrition, the tropical heat, all of it took its toll. Werner lost weight. His hair became even thinner, and his walk more unsteady. He also had psychological problems. At night, he often could not sleep, tormented by memories of Mali, of his stupidity, of his lost life. Sometimes he woke up, drenched in sweat, convinced that someone wanted to rob him. The trust he had once had in people was destroyed. Every smile seemed false, every kindness suspicious. Werner had become a mistrustful, paranoid old man. In the summer, about 4 months after the theft, Werner's sister contacted him again. She had heard of other German expats in Thailand who were in similar situations and had contacted an aid organization. This organization, a German association for Germans abroad in need, offered support. Not much, €200 a month in additional help, but it helped. Together with his pension and occasional work, Werner now had about €1,600 a month. It was just enough to survive. The organization also helped Werner find cheaper accommodation. A small room in Hua Hin, another coastal city on the mainland. 4,000 baht a month, about €120. Werner moved. Hua Hin was quieter than Koh Samui, less touristy. There was a small community of German retirees there, some in similarly difficult situations. Werner began meeting with them. In a small cafe, they met once a week, sharing their stories, advice, and suffering. One of them was Klaus, a 70-year-old Berliner who had also been deceived by a Thai woman. Klaus had lost more than €200,000 and now lived on a small pension. "We are all fools," Klaus said bitterly during one of their meetings. "Old lonely fools who believed that love could be bought." Werner nodded. "The worst thing is not the money. The worst thing is knowing that I was so blind." Another man, Friedrich, said, "But we survived." That is something. We are still here. Yes, Werner thought, we are still here. But is that really life or only existence? In the autumn, about 6 months after the theft, something happened that Werner had not expected. He was in a supermarket in Hua Hin, buying the cheapest food he could find, when he heard a familiar voice. He turned around and froze. There, only a few meters away, stood Malay. She looked healthy, well-dressed, smiling, and talking to an older Western man, perhaps an American or an Australian. Werner's first impulse was anger. He wanted to go to her, confront her, scream at her, but his legs would not obey. He just stood there and stared. Malay turned and saw him. For a moment, their eyes met. Werner saw recognition in her eyes, but no remorse, only cold indifference. Then she turned away and continued walking with the man as if Werner were a stranger, someone meaningless. Werner felt his knees grow weak. He had to lean against a shelf so he would not fall. A supermarket employee asked with concern whether he was all right. "Yes," Werner said automatically. "I am fine," but he was not fine. The encounter had brought all the suppressed emotions back to the surface. The anger, the pain, the feeling of betrayal. Werner left the supermarket without his groceries. He went back to his room and cried, not out of self-pity, but out of pure helplessness. Malay was free. She was living her life, probably already finding the next victim. And Werner? Werner had lost everything and would never experience justice. In the following days, Werner seriously thought about going to the police and reporting that he had seen Malay. But what would that accomplish? The police had already told him that without concrete evidence, nothing could be done. Instead, Werner decided to make his story public. Maybe he could help others not make the same mistake. He contacted a German journalist who was making a documentary about fraud in Thailand. The journalist was interested and came to Hua Hin to interview Werner. "Mr. Lutz," the journalist began, "why do you want to tell your story?" "Because others need to be warned," Werner said. "I was not the first, and I will not be the last. If my story stops just one person, from making the same mistake, then it has a purpose. The interview became part of the documentary, which was broadcast a few months later. Werner did not watch it. He did not have a television, but his sister sent him a message. "Werner, I saw you. It was brave of you to share your story. I am proud of you." Those words meant more to Werner than he wanted to admit. After the broadcast, Werner received some messages from strangers, people who had experienced similar things, who offered support, or who simply expressed their sympathy. Slowly, very slowly, Werner began to heal, not completely. The wounds were too deep, but at least he began to accept what had happened. In the winter, almost 1 year after the theft, Werner had found a certain routine. He lived in his small room in Hua Hin, worked occasionally as a helper for German tourists, and met with his small group of friends in the cafe. It was not a good life, but it was a life. Werner had stopped fighting against his reality. He had accepted that this was now his fate. His relationship with his family in Germany had improved. His sister called him regularly and sometimes sent him small amounts of money. His brother, with whom he had barely spoken for decades, had also made contact. Werner had also learned to trust people again, at least a little. Not blindly like before, but cautiously, with open eyes. He became friends with a younger German man named Markus, who worked as a volunteer helper in Thailand. Markus was open, honest, and had no hidden motives. Their friendship was one of the few bright spots in Werner's life. One day Markus said to him, "Werner, you should return to Germany. You will never truly be happy here. Too many bad memories." Werner thought about it. Back to Germany, to Kassel, where he had no one left, where he would be known as the man who lost everything in Thailand. "No," Werner said. "Here I am anonymous. Here, only I and a few people in Germany know my story. In Germany, everyone would know. Everyone would pity me or judge me." Markus understood, but he said, "If you ever change your mind, I will help you." Werner was grateful for that friendship. In a life full of betrayal, it was refreshing to have someone who seemed sincere. Werner also began volunteering. He helped at a small animal shelter in Hua Hin, fed street dogs and cleaned cages. It was simple work, but it gave his life meaning. The dogs did not judge him. They did not ask about his past. They only wanted food, water, and a little affection. Werner could give them that. His health remained a problem. At 71, Werner felt every effort. His back hurt constantly. His joints were stiff, and his breath was sometimes short, but he had learned to live with it. One evening, as Werner sat alone in his room, he thought about his life. He had lost more than 340,000 euros, almost his entire life's work. He had sold his house, moved to a foreign country, and trusted a woman who had only used him. Had it been worth it? Of course not. But Werner had also learned something, that loneliness drives people to desperate decisions, that the desire to be loved can make us blind, and that trust is valuable, but also dangerous. His guiding sentence, which he sometimes said to himself, summed up his experience. "She did not only steal my money. She stole my trust in people." Those words were painfully true, but Werner carried them with a certain dignity. He had survived. He was still alive. And, despite everything, that was something. In the spring, about a year and a half after the theft, Werner had found a kind of peace. Not happiness, that would be too much to say, but an acceptance of his situation. he continued living in his small room in Hua Hin. His routine was simple. In the morning, he worked at the animal shelter. At midday, he ate a simple meal at a street stand. In the afternoon, he rested or occasionally helped German tourists. In the evening, he sometimes met his friends at the cafe or sat alone in his room and read. His financial situation was stable, although modest. With his pension, the support from the aid organization, and his occasional work, he had about €1,800 a month. It was enough for a simple life. He had also learned to appreciate small joys again. A beautiful sunset on the beach, the wagging tail of a dog at the animal shelter, a friendly conversation with a stranger. These things cost nothing, but they made life more bearable. One day, Werner met a young German couple who had just arrived in Thailand. They were full of hope and dreams, speaking enthusiastically about their plans. The man said that he had met a Thai woman online and planned to live permanently in Thailand. Werner listened and felt a familiar unease. At the end of the conversation, he said carefully, "Be careful. Not everything is as it seems. Take your time. Do not trust too quickly." The young man smiled. "I know, but we have known each other for a long time online, over a year." "It is real," Werner nodded. "I hope for your sake that you are right." He knew that the man probably would not truly listen, just as Werner had not listened when others had warned him. But he tried anyway. Werner often thought of Malay, not with love, but with a mixture of anger and sadness. He wondered how many other men she had deceived since then, how many lives she had destroyed. He never heard from her again. The police had obviously given up their search. Malay was free, somewhere in Thailand, probably with a new name and a new victim. That injustice hurt, but Werner had learned to live with it. The world was not fair. He had learned that the hard way. His sister visited him once. She came to Thailand for 2 weeks and stayed in a simple hotel nearby. It was the first time in years that Werner had had a family visit. She was shocked by his living conditions. "Werner, this is not a life," she said. "Come home. I will help you find an apartment in Hamburg. You can live near me." Werner shook his head. "Germany is no longer my home. I burned that bridge. That is not true. You can always come back." But Werner stuck to his decision. Thailand was now his home, despite everything that had happened. At the end of her visit, his sister hugged him tightly. "Take care of yourself, big brother." "I will," Werner promised. Today, in the autumn, Werner Lutz still lives in his small room in Hua Hin. He is 72 years old and looks like a man in his late 70s. Of his original €360,000, about 12,000 remain, saved from his pension and careful budgeting. He lives on about €1,800 a month. It is not much, but it is enough. His days follow a fixed routine. In the morning, he works at the animal shelter. At midday, he eats his simple meal. In the afternoon, he rests. In the evening, he often sits alone in his room or meets his few friends. His health has become fragile. He has problems with his heart, his back, and his knees. But he has been lucky. No serious illnesses so far. He never saw Malay again after that encounter in the supermarket. He has heard rumors in the expat community that she now lives in another part of Thailand, possibly under another name. Werner no longer asks himself whether she will be caught. He has accepted that justice sometimes does not come. His relationship with his family is better than ever before. His sister calls him weekly, and his brother has also started regular contact. Werner is grateful for these connections. Sometimes he thinks of Germany, of cold winter evenings, of Christmas markets, and the familiarity of his hometown Kassel. But he knows that he will never return. Thailand is now his home, for better or worse. When Werner meets young men today who dream of finding love in Thailand, he does not warn them in an intrusive way, but seriously. Be careful, he says then. Protect your money, take your time, do not trust blindly, and above all, do not give anyone full access to your finances, no matter how strongly you believe that they love you. Some listen, some do not. But Werner tries. His guiding sentence, which he often repeats, sums up his experience. She did not only steal my money, she stole my trust in people. These words are bitter, but true, and Werner carries them with him every day. But he also carries something else. The realization that, despite everything, he has survived, that against all odds he is still here, still breathing, still alive. Life has become hard for Werner Lutz, but he does not give up. Every day he gets up, goes to the animal shelter, feeds the dogs, talks with his friends, and eats his simple meal. It is not a great life, but it is his life, and that has to be enough. The sun rises over Hua Hin. Werner Lutz gets ready for a new day. It will be a day like any other. Simple, modest, without major events. But it will be his day. And in a life that has seen so much loss, that is a small victory. If this story touched you, and you would like to learn more about the realities of fraud and manipulation, please subscribe to this channel. Your support allows me to continue telling such important stories despite my full-time job.